Welcome back. You are tuned in to Traders Nation. My pleasure to have back with us once again, Shari Olefson. Foreclosure Nation's the name of the book, Mortgaging the American Dream. Shari, welcome to Traders Nation. How are you today?
Good. How you doing?
Doing real good, thanks. Shari, last time you were on, we discussed on how over 2 million Americans are going to lose their homes, and almost $2 billion worth of wealth will disappear in the process. Has that happened?
Yeah, it has happened around us, and gosh, does that seem like a long time ago, because back then the main concern was people not being able to pay their mortgage and having their home taken from them, and now just as big of a concern is people not wanting to pay their mortgage and wanting to walk away from their homes.
Right. Now, see, this is a big problem because I don't know why people are getting this mentality. It's like, well, everybody else is doing it, I'll just get lost in the mix of things, and is it really going to affect my score? And of course it is, and why are you doing that? So there is actually a name for this. It's called strategic defaulters, right?
Absolutely, and it really came to the forefront. We've been talking about it for a while, but it came to the forefront after a study out of Northwestern was publicized about the morals and the social restraints that are tied to defaulting and walking away.
Right.
And those researchers actually found what they call a multiplication effect, that people who knew someone who defaulted are actually 82% more likely to default themselves.
Wow.
So it's sort of a cultural thing that's just taking hold.
Right. All right. So what areas are we seeing this in? Because there's got to be hot areas of the country, just like there was hot areas of default. There's got to be hot areas of the country where we're seeing more of these strategic defaulters at. Where are they at?
Yeah, they're highly concentrated in the negative equity market. So, for example, California, 68% higher likelihood of a strategic default there. Florida, 46% higher. But also in areas where they did a lot of these option arm mortgages. Those are the mortgages that we're hearing about now that may be an even bigger problem than the subprime mortgages.
Yeah.
And a lot of those are set to recast. Their interest rates are going to adjust starting in 2010. From 2010 to 2012, there's something like $30 billion worth of mortgage money there that's set to recast. So we're seeing a lot of the strategic defaults in those areas too.
Do they own more than one home? I mean, do they have vacation homes, or is it just they're in one home and they're upside down? They're doing the math. They're like, well, we're less of a responsible society today. Why not just throw it out the door with it? Are they more than one homeowners or just one?
You hit the nail on the head. You touched on a very interesting subject, because up until recently it was mostly on these income properties, and a lot of folks, who I had calls from potential clients who had, a dozen condos, and they started collecting the rent and not paying the bank months ago, which is a horrendous way to handle your finances.
Sure.
But now 2/3 of these strategic defaults are actually on primary residences. So we're looking at a lot of people who are going to be physically inconvenienced by this too. And one of the interesting factors is that the higher the loan amount, the more likelihood there is that there's going to be a strategic default too. What we're seeing is that people in lower income brackets, even if they're upside down, are tending to want to struggle and hold on longer and be less likely to strategically use this as a financial planning tool. And some of the psychologists are saying that one of the reasons, for example, might be that people in lower income brackets don't have a lot of other assets. Their home is their biggest thing and the only thing that they've ever really owned, and they just psychologically don't want to walk away with it, and they don't have a lot of cash. So if you're gonna walk away from your home, you need a place to live. So you're going to go look for a rental, and landlords are wise to this. They don't want to have people who are, they're going to have to evict and not pay the rent, so they're requiring first, last, and security, and people in the lower income brackets tend to not have that kind of cash sitting around, whereas someone with a ton of money who's sitting on a $2 million home that's worth $1.5 million now, they're fully aware of the fact that this is going to impact their credit.
Yeah.
And they don't care because they've never had credit problems before. They figure, they've got connections. They know the guy at the bank. They'll work it out.
Yeah.
And they've got plenty of money for rent. So it's just an inconvenience, but not a big deal.
Shari, it just drives me crazy. There's going to be some moral bankruptcy here because, and not only that, but maybe even criminal, because when you're taking in money with the intent to defraud, because that really is what that is. When some of these property owners, they're taking in money, and they're taking it in, but they're not paying their responsibility. That's got to be some type of criminal activity or criminal. There's got to be something to that.
Well, on the homes, it's one issue. It's funny because a lot of my practice involves commercial work. So,
right.
We may represent a bank taking back a development, and we're seeing that a lot, where you had guarantors who were, millionaires who showed the banks all their finances and got the banks to loan them millions of dollars. And then as soon as things started getting rough, transferred all this money offshore to Baileys trusts. And they're pretty open about the fact that, they're telling the banks that you're not going to be able to collect my money now,
right.
Which you're right. As far as I'm concerned, that's the equivalent of robbing a bank. And I do see some of I represent some developers, so I'm sympathetic to that. But as far as the homestead properties go, it's interesting because it depends on the state. Like California, for example, is a non-recourse state for homestead property. So essentially, when you borrow a loan, money for a home, in California, the borrower is basically giving the bank a put option to buy their home for the loan amount, because if things go south, what's to prevent the borrower from walking? There's no what we call the deficiency judgment, which in other states like Florida or New York is the difference between what the bank can sell your house for if they have to take it back and what you still owe them on the mortgage.
Right.
That's called the deficiency, and in other states they can go after you for that, and it'll be real interesting to see over the next 5 or 10 years what banks do with these deficiency judgments, because those things can sneak up on a borrower who's not aware of it.
Well, see, here's the other thing is at some point everything is going to come back to this borrower if they walk away from their responsibilities, their homes, etc. But this almost sounds to me, when you say they move their money, some of these people move their money offshore, I mean, this is a calculated business decision, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy, and Belize in particular doesn't. It's a safe harbor. They're not going to force. They don't have an agreement with the United States like other countries do, where we can reach there and grab it. I mean, if it's there, it's there.
I know, and I tell you what, with the IRS going after accounts in Switzerland's going to lose their marketability. So Belize is where they're going, right?
Absolutely. But there's still some judges here who go to a guarantor and literally hold them in contempt and say either you voluntarily move your money back, or I'm going to throw you in jail. So who knows? We'll see how those things play out.
All right, Foreclosure Nation's the name of the book. Sherry, where can we find a copy of it today?
Amazon, Amazon.com. It's about $12, or also on our website, which is foreclosurenationthebook.com.
All right, head on over to the website today and definitely get a copy of Foreclosure Nation. Shari Olefson, thanks for your time today on Traders Nation. Appreciate it.
Thanks a bunch. Have a great day.
You're more than welcome.